Good morning. Today, we would be talking about the value of philosophy under the literary work of Bertrand Russell, Problems of Philosophy, Chapter 15. Now, is philosophy really needed? Bakit ko ba ito natanong? Well, this is because that many people, especially the ones who are under the influence of science and practical reasoning, will doubt that philosophy is something to be studied and that it is not just about asking very useless questions that could easily be reasoned out. Kasi, as we all know, philosophy usually tends to have very quote-unquote weird questions kasi ang panay ng mga tanong dito is yung mga bagay na hindi tayo sanay na naririnig or natatanong. For example is yung bakit ba tayo nabubuhay or meron bang saysay talaga ang buhay natin and etc. Ngayon, why does people think philosophy is something that we shouldn't learn about? One is because people compare it to other abstract knowledge like physical science. Now, physical science, through the medium of inventions, have been very useful ever since its creation. This could be seen on our daily lives. For example, yung alarm clock natin where it emits sound. And yung sound na yun is yung reason kung bakit tayo nagigising tuwing umaga. Or yung iba't ibang elements na nakakatulong sa atin sa pang-araw-araw na kabuhayan. Tulad ng apoy where we use this para makapagluto ng ating pagkain, and that food is what gives us energy in our daily lives. Now, this has contributed to a lot of different human interactions, which makes the study of physical science recommended by the many, since this affects the mankind in general, and not only the people who studies it. Although that's not the case in philosophy because utility does not belong to philosophy. If philosophy has been valued by the people, then it must be only indirectly through its effects on the lives of those who try to study it. Through these effects that the value of philosophy must be sought. Now, to really find the value of philosophy, we must first open our mind from the prejudices, so-called practical men. Now, ano nga ba tong mga quote-unquote practical men? Now, itong mga practical men are the people who try to see the material needs. For example, yung food na kinakain natin, yung mga materials na ginagamit natin, physical objects, etc. Who only thinks what makes him think by the society. Iniisip lang nila yung mga bagay na binibigay sa kanila ng society. Now, these kinds of people who realizes that men must have food for the body, pero hindi lang ang katawan natin ang kailangan ng pagkain, pati ang ating kaalaman or utak. And is where they turn a blind eye on the necessity of the mind. Our body is not the only part of us who needs food, it is also our minds that needs it. Just like other studies, philosophy aims primarily to gain knowledge. This quote-unquote knowledge is the kind of knowledge which gives unity and system to the body of the sciences. This results from a critical examination of the grounds of our convictions, prejudices, and beliefs. Although philosophy has a good record in terms of success in providing definite answers to its questions. Basically, philosophy doesn't have a good success rate when it comes to giving definite answers from the people pag sila yung nagtatanong. And yun nga, uh, hindi katulad ng ibang experts na pag tinanong ng isang question that is derived from their expertise, masasagot nila yon ng sakto. Now, for example, is yung isang mathematician. If you ask a mathematician ng isang mathematical question, may masasagot at masasagot siya. And that answer would be uh, true, that is definite yung answer na mabibigay ng isang mathematician. And that also goes with historians when you ask them questions about our history kasi they study the past of each individuals that they expertised on. And again, like this in mineralogists where they study minerals and rocks of our world. Although if it is not asked to a philosopher, pag tinanong mo yun sa isang philosopher, if sasabihin niya yung totoo. That his study has not achieved positive results compared to other sciences. This leads to a fact that as soon as a definite knowledge concerning any subject becomes possible, this subject ceases to be called philosophy and becomes a separate subject. What does that mean? Ibig sabihin lang nun na yung isang study, pag nakakuha na ng definite answer and it's constructed its basis, its pillars, it will go astray to philosophy and become its own independent study. Now, we have different examples for this. Example is yung astronomy. Back then, astronomy is part of philosophy, and it is called study of heavens. And that also goes with psychology, where it is the study of mind, date, in philosophy. Now, ideas and knowledge becomes another branch of science due to it having definite answers, which then go separate from philosophy. Gaya nga nung sabi ko kanina. But this is the side of philosophy where we sought the truth and a definite answer. We still have the other side, which is the uncertainty of philosophy. Diba? Katulad ng kanina, meron tayong mga examples na binigay na they found pillars and they constructed pillars for their study. Now, bakit naging part to ng philosophy? Tulad ng kanina, bakit naging part to ng philosophy yung mga binigay kong examples? It is because dati, it is also like questions that people never thought to question. For example, astronomy, hindi inisip ng mga tao na meron bang world outside our Earth. Iniisip nila like obviously other people believe na there's God and it's heaven, etc. Right? And that also goes with psychology, where it also feels weird to ask dati kasi they don't believe on these kinds of studies. Pero on the other side of philosophy, katulad na sinabi ko, meron tayong uncertainty of philosophy. Ito yung mga bagay na parang as of now hindi pa rin natin siya nasasagot. There are a lot of questions, and one major interest of this is about our spiritual life. Does the world really have a purpose? Or is it just a composition of atoms? Are good and evil relevant on the universe or only to man? These questions were asked by many and answered by various philosophers. Whatever these people answer, the answers suggested by philosophy are none of them demonstrate a definitive answer. Yet this is part of philosophy. Katulad na sabi ko, it is a part of philosophy, yung mga bagay na hindi pa rin natin nasasagot. Even with the answers not demonstrating any true answer, it is still needed to be asked, which makes us aware of their importance, yung importansya, yung question, yung bagay na naisip natin, to examine each side of the universe and the limit of our minds, to confine ourselves to definitive, ascertainable knowledge. Now, the value of philosophy must not depend upon any supposed body definitive knowledge. The value of philosophy is to be sought largely in its very uncertainty. Doon natin siya hinahanap, yung mga bagay na hindi pa natin alam. Hindi dun sa mga bagay na alam na natin. Kasi, yung mga bagay na alam na natin, anong gagawin natin? Tama. Isn't it that we should focus more on the things that we don't know more than the things that we know? Now, a man who has no tincture of philosophy locks himself in the prejudice derived from common sense, from the habitual belief of his age and or nation, from convictions which have grown up in his mind without the cooperation of his deliberate reason. Ngayon, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na parang common man, where they only focus on and they only believe on the things na binibigay sa kanila ng society ever since they grow up, nung bata pa sila, nung palaki sila ng palaki, yung mga pinaniniwala nila is yung mga bagay na tinuturo lamang sila at hindi nila binibase yung mga bagay na inaalam nila dun sa mga bagay na gusto nilang malaman, yung tinatanong nila. Now, these people see the world as definite, finite, obvious, where common objects ask no questions and unfamiliar possibilities are rejected. Although if we started to philosophize, we see opening chapters where small things becomes bigger things, where there are a lot of questions still needed to be answered and breaking the barrier of socially constructed ideas plotted on the mind of the people. Like I said kanina, pag in-start na nating ibuksan yung mga sarili natin, we would be freed from these kulungan na ginawa ng society sa utak natin. One of philosophy's value is its power to free us from narrow and personal aims of ideas. We are locked up to our private world where finite ideas are given to us, but by knowing there is an escape from this, we must try to free ourselves and strive. Now, kaya nang sabi ko kanina, ang isa sa mga kapangyarihan ng philosophy is palayain tayo sa kulungan na ginawa ng society, na yung mga bagay na tinuro sa atin is yung mga bagay na dapat lang daw natin pinaniniwalaan. For example is yung heavenly bodies, like our religions. Like, tinatanong natin, like, I mean, before, nung bata pa tayo, we only believe na totoo yung mga ganito kasi dun tayo pinalaki. Pero, as we all know, if we question these, dun tayo mamumulat sa mga bagay na hindi pa natin alam, at we would try to answer those questions. We seek for answers. And that's the time where we become free dun sa mga bagay, dun sa kulungan na ginawa sa atin. One way of escape is by philosophic contemplation. This is by the enlargement of self through the knowledge that we obtain. It is best that we don't base what we obtain to what we currently know and doesn't act like everything is something different and neglect it. Philosophic contemplation doesn't divide the world into two different sections. Just like friends and foes, helpful and hostile, good and bad, it views the whole impartially. Basically, sinasabi ng philosophy na, or tinitignan ng philosophy, ang mundo as something as a whole. Hindi ito the bagay na parang two-sided, where there's two sides na parang nag-aaway, or there's two sides na parang doesn't connect with each other. Philosophic contemplation doesn't aim to seek for answers that the rest is similar to men, because men isn't the center of everything. Like I said, ang philosophy is hindi pumapagitna dito ang tao. Dapat hindi natin tinutulad ang mga bagay sa kung anong alam natin. Kasi tulad ng sabi ko, philosophy is really, really wide. Sobrang lawak ng philosophy. And man is just a part of it. Knowledge is a form of union of self and not self. We shouldn't force that man is the measure of all things. That is the truth. That the truth is man-made. Hindi dapat ganun. The man who finds pleasure in such a theory of knowledge is a man who never leaves the domestic circle for fear his word might not be law. Like I said, ito yung this could be compared dun sa mga taong tinatawag natin na quote-unquote practical men. Now, the true philosophic contemplation finds its satisfaction in every enlargement of the not self. Everything that depends upon habit, self interest, or desire distorts the object and hence impairs the union which the intellect seeks. This creates a barrier between subject and object. Such personal and private things become a prison to the intellect. Kaya nasabi ko kanina, like, to be honest, kung titignan mo din sa topics natin, parang binabalik-balikan ko lang yung mga base na sinabi ko before kasi dun lagi tayo babalik. Na tayo ay parang nakakulong sa isang idea na kumbaga dito lang tayo pinaikot-ikot, yung utak natin dito pinaikot-ikot ng mga tao. Now, yung philosophy, it free us from this jail. Pinapalaya niya tayo kasi we try to venture out. We try to seek for answers to questions na hindi naman tayo familiar with. The mind which has become accustomed to the freedom and impartiality of the philosophic contemplation will view its purposes and desires as part of the whole. Philosophy is something to be studied, not for the sake to find definite answers to its questions, but rather for the sake of the questions themselves. This is because these questions enlarge our conception of what is possible, enrich our intellect, imagination, and open our closed minds. Above all, this is because through the great universe where philosophy contemplates, where mind is also seen as a great and becomes capable of the union with the universe, which constitutes its possible knowledge. Basically, ang tinutukoy ng value of philosophy is hindi natin inaaral ang philosophy just for the sake na makahanap tayo ng mga sagot. Ang tunay na kahalaga ng philosophy is ang pagpaparaya sa atin at ang pagpapalawak ng ating utak sa mga bagay na hindi natin nalalaman. And that is by questioning. Question, question, question. And that also one of the that is also derived from Rene Descartes, where he asked, he always asked, because that is when we knew that we are trying to move forward on this world. We try to seek for knowledge, and we attain this by keeping on asking by keeping on asking questions. And that's all for the value of philosophy. Sana may natutunan kayo. And have a great day. Thank you.